Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Blockchain and Healthcare webinar series. I'm excited to introduce our guest speakers for this evening, and that's Aman Khandri from AMCIS and Choka Palimotpatai. We're going to be having an exciting discussion on understanding AMCHART, patient-driven EHR, and building blockchain ecosystems. Before we jump in, and I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves in just a moment, just want to give the audience a little bit of a sense of what to expect. So we're going to be on listen-only mode until the facilitated Q&A session at the end. We'll be receiving a presentation from the CEO and the CTO of AMCIS Blockchain. We'll be asking you a poll question at the beginning to understand a little bit better who you are as an audience this evening. After 30 minutes of presentations, we're going to be having a panel discussion for about 45 minutes, and then opening it to the audience for a full 45 minutes of questions and answers. We're really excited about the open and collaborative framework we're looking for here. In order to ask questions, please use the Q&A dialog box that's part of your GoToWebinar utility. We won't be looking at them during the conference until we get to the Q&A section. If your question is selected, and we're going to try to take first come, first serve questions as much as possible, you'll be taken off of mute, and I'll give you a heads up about that by saying your name a few seconds before unmuting you. And then we'll close out with reminders about some affiliated events coming downstream. So with that, Aman, would you start with your introductions?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Heather, for inviting us and allowing us to share a little bit of information and talk about not only what we're doing, but also what we're trying to do as a whole ecosystem. But my name is Aman Khandri. I'm the CEO of AMCIS Blockchain and Cryptocurrency. I'm also one of the, one of the leads here on the AMCHART development. My background comes from, I was originally in tech and then was a practitioner as a physical therapist for 15 plus years and have a doctor of physical therapy out of Texas Tech University. And then was a consultant in the medical space for the last 7 years. And it's all the pain points that led me to this point of trying to solve this EHR issue and then working with our team to develop this out. So it's kind of in a nutshell, and then we'll talk more about what I'm involved with later on.
Thank you, Aman. Choka.
Hey, my name is Choka Palimotpatai. I'm the CTO of AMCHART. I'm also a development lead for AMCHART. I have about 17 years of experience in distributed computing. I've been a technologist for that long, and primarily with experience in healthcare, startups, in telecom, cybersecurity. So, thanks, Heather, for giving us a platform to present AMCHART, and thanks for everyone in the call.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. It's going to be a really exciting conversation, I know. So before we move into your presentation, Aman, let's find out a little bit about our audience. So everyone, you're going to see a question pop up. During this time, it actually shows me how many participants on the line have answered the questions, and I'd like to get to 90% of you having voted. So if you could please go ahead and answer that quick question, asking about how you perceive your professional role with respect to participation in a blockchain ecosystem. Is it something where you would provide a leadership sense? You would be accountable for the IT dimensions, perhaps part of an IT implementation, or maybe you're only here to learn and have no specific responsibility with respect to the organization you represent. Okay, we're already at 75% voted. Thanks so much, everybody. This is a very active audience. Getting close to that 90% goal, almost there. All right, fantastic. Wow, thanks everybody. So I'm going to share the results for all of us to see. So, wow, this is really exciting. Aman and Choka, we have 35% of the audience who leads their organization in ecosystem participation, another 18 that are influencers, 4% that are IT leaders, and 16% that are in the IT implementation area, and another 27% just here to learn. Thoughts on that before we jump into the presentation? Any reaction to the poll response?
No, what's awesome is to see people that are wanting to learn. I'm always on the move of learning about what's going on in the space, so it's always cool to see a bunch of people that want to learn. That's a cool part of it.
Yeah, that and the
Oh,
ecosystem factor. So
Yeah, that's really cool.
absolutely. All right, so I am going to drop off of webcam and make you presenter, Iman, and we can have you get started. Just one moment.
Right.
All right. You should be good to go.
And you guys should be able to see my screen now, right?
Yep, we sure can.
All right. Well, I'll give you a brief overview of what we're trying to do. There's a couple of things that we're trying to do with AMCHART itself. One is, of course, to create the medical record. But two is, like we'll talk about later, is to build healthy ecosystems and partnerships that are going to enhance the patient experience. And so, like I introduced you before, my name is Iman Quadri. I've been involved with AMCHART blockchain. And AMCHART blockchain itself is a division under our larger company. Our group is called the AMCHART Group, and we've been around for about 15 years, and we've created multiple divisions over time. I joined AMCHART Group around 2010 when we started a healthcare division called Transwise. And the reason we started it is because we saw a need in a lot of back office medical issues. Physicians are great practitioners, but a lot of them we noticed were having difficulty with medical billing or transcription, or even issues with just having good insurance verification or the ability to actually have good data movement. And so we developed a back office services platform, and we're able to incorporate a lot of different electronic health records, which we're implementing. And again, we saw the pain points of electronic health records. We'd implement one, and then you'd notice that it couldn't communicate with another. We even saw instances of large legacy systems like in Epic, for example, where they were in the same system, but those two instances couldn't communicate with each other. And so data transfers were always an issue, and that was always the bane of most physicians' existence. So we always wanted to try to do something where we could help out. And so just to give you a little brief overview, the AMCHART Group has multiple divisions. I kind of help oversee a lot of them, but my main emphasis is blockchain and healthcare. And so because I was a practitioner and I was placed in the blockchain division, well, it's nice to be able to do something that's that you love most. So healthcare was one of the first things we decided to tackle. And electronic health records themselves are not the easiest thing to go after, because like somebody told me at a recent conference, there are a lot of dead bodies of companies littered all over the place of people who tried and failed. And that's probably that is true. But our goal with it is that if nobody ever tries or goes after it, then it'll never change. And then that's where the spawning of healthcare ecosystems came into play, that if we work together with a lot of different groups who are doing different things, that may be able to be spark the right way of developing an electronic health record platform. And so one of the main objectives for us for AMCHART is full control over patient records by the patient, and especially the data that they generate. One of the things that is a big complaint for patients to us is the fact that if they travel, they have difficulty with being able to share information. Right? They have difficulty with being able to share kids' data or family data, or be able to tell a doctor what medications they're on if the medication list is long. And so we wanted to change that, but we also wanted to make the platform simpler for physicians. I had a conversation today in our office with a physician who told me that most electronic health record systems are unusable in an ER setting because it requires so much time for them to be able to do one note. And so if they could find a way that they could do template driven, or even something simple that allows them to be able to access data quickly, then they can make better decisions that way. And so we wanted to use AMCHART not only as the record itself, but a platform to build off of. And we'll talk about that technology and what we're trying to do later. And so these are some of the big issues that we've noticed. And if we polled you guys, you probably would say some of the same things, that legacy systems have difficulty with sharing information because information is siloed. We also noticed that data is not used for proactive healthcare management. What it's used for mostly is for a lot of times reselling of data, but also for their own record keeping. And so data stays in places and doesn't transfer to other doctors or other hospital systems, which leads to the lack of portability of records, timely access. So the ER doctor I was visiting with today said that sometimes his care is more conservative because of the fact that he has to wait to get better data. And sometimes if they guess, they don't want to guess wrong because of liability issues. But if they had up-to-date data at all times, they could make those quick decisions that could, impact a person's life. And then the other thing with it is use of data for incentives. And we'll talk about that further, but here in a few slides. But we feel like data and the incorporation and accumulation of data should be used for people to be incentivized for their own health from different motivating factors. And that is not done currently. I mean, there's some pilot programs that are out there, but nothing that's done on a larger basis. And I think that's what we want to try to change as well too. So then what we did with AMCHART with, let's just put this slide. There we go. So what we did was we wanted to work on those features based on the pain points I discussed earlier. We wanted to create, a compliant hybrid blockchain model. We wanted to make it patient-centric because we feel like patients are always, I hate to use the word, but I think they're treated as second class when it comes to their own healthcare. And I feel like if they're put in the forefront and they're empowered to use their data for proper purposes, that you would have better outcomes. And so with that, then we do incentive-based health and wellness programs. And that's where we partner with other organizations to try to create education models and incentives that help to drive the care in the right direction. We wanted to make it portable, of course, and then consolidation of records. If you go to multiple providers, we want the ability over time for us to add to that block, so that people can have, the most accurate data that's available to them. And so here's a basic look on, this is very basic. Choka will go into a lot more detail, but in essence, how it works is we use an ERC20 token, which is the AMC token, and this is going to be utilized not only for access to the medical record itself, but we also use it for all of our incentive-based programs. We're built on the Hyperledger Sawtooth framework, and again, we'll go into more detail on why we chose that. And then we also are utilizing Intel SGX technology to assist with us for security and privacy and even scalability. We never felt, we still don't feel, that a public blockchain can truly handle the needs of a medical record. We believe that scalability is an issue, speed's an issue, expense is an issue, especially those that are trying to build on Ethereum or other platforms. You have to think about the expense associated with a public blockchain. We feel like this provides security and stability at this time, but it doesn't mean we do not explore public blockchains. We are currently. We have discussions with many different blockchain groups. And so we're hoping that there'll come a time where a public blockchain can be appropriate for certain parts of our build. But at this time, this is the direction we're choosing, and we feel like it's the right way. And we've had, great support from Hyperledger and Intel on that process too. So this is kind of the phase of development. Currently, our MVP is up and running, and if you decide to get more information or sign up with us, we'll be more than happy to get you a first look into the MVP here really quickly. And the MVP is running. We're able to put basic patient data on there. The other thing that we've created is a mobile application, and I'll show you some screenshots of that here shortly. The mobile application is designed to be kind of the forefront for a patient. So we try to aggregate data directly from IoT devices, your Fitbit, your Apple Watch. So the things that we've integrated so far are scales, blood pressure, heart rate, O2, blood sugar. So we can take all that data and it can go directly from the mobile application itself into the electronic health record. So when a doctor opens up the dashboard, he sees live data. And our goal is anytime you have the most succinct data and up-to-date data available, better decision-making can occur. And so we're working on that. And so those two, the electronic health record and the mobile app, are currently in the process of being kind of joined together so that data can come through. We're hoping to have the mobile application out in about 2 or 3 weeks. And so again, we'll get you a kind of a first look into it. It'll come out on the iOS store first, and then Android will follow a few weeks later. So we're hoping all that will be out in April. And then of course, phase 3 is building out and testing of our machine learning AI platform, because we know that data is going to be a big part of the build, and we're going to accumulate lots of it. So we want to utilize it for proactive management, being able to identify certain health issues before they become a problem. We want to use data for better matching for research studies, for pharmaceutical research, even clinical trial matching. We're in discussions, and that'll be part of this blockchain ecosystem, of a couple of companies who are trying to gather genomic data on the blockchain and how they could connect with us and we could share those data pools. And so that we're trying to do a lot of different things with different partners to be able to create the ecosystem. And of course, in phase 4, which is Q4 and beyond, is really integrating with other existing EHRs. We're kind of doing that already right now. We're already in talks with several different clinics, mostly community clinics that have a big need for having better data sources, to go ahead and do trial runs, hopefully at the end of the summer of this year. So it'll be a little bit faster than Q4. And so we want to, there's a lot of data that's available and they want to be able to utilize that data better. So we're going to be partnering with them to do trial runs, and we're always looking for increased partnerships to be able to do that. And so one of the big things that we always hear from people is they're tired of filling out paperwork all the time. And so one of the things we wanted to do was to have kind of a universal intake form. We also wanted to have universal HIPAA and informed consent forms, and we're still working through those. But our goal is this: if you're in our system and you get referred to another doctor's in our system, you should never have to fill out the same paperwork again. Because one, it's a waste of paper, but two, I just don't like writing on paper anymore. So I'd rather avoid that. So we wanted to do one-time registration. Now you can always append a registration or or add to it, but we want to make sure that your basic data is there at all times to be able to share. Here's a few screenshots from our mobile application itself. On the very right-hand side, you see a few of the things we've integrated. All the stuff is not listed on there, but we want to be able to integrate any device possible. So we don't want that to be a limitation. So if there's a community clinic or an organization or a home health that uses specific equipment and they bring it to us, we will make sure that's integrated part of our system. You already aggregate data all the time from Fitbit and Samsung, tabs. You also can get stuff from a lot of different other devices. And so we want to make sure that if it's available, we're going to incorporate it. So that's nothing to worry about. And in the middle screen, what you see is some progress goals. We're working through trying to figure out some of them, but our goal is this, is that if you work together with your doctor and you're setting certain goals to try to meet for, in this case, pulses and diastolic and systolic blood pressure readings, that we can try to work on how that shows up and makes it easy and attainable for a patient to see. Same thing on the left-hand side, blood pressure summary is there, but we also want to incorporate things like body measurements, nutrition intake, water. We want to do all those things that can become part of the ecosystem of making changes in the 3 biggest areas that we feel like that could be attainable, which is diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. Those 3 things, we really feel that if the right motivation factors are done, right education factors are done, and right support from providers and hospital systems, you can make drastic changes in those areas. And so we want to create the mobile app in those directions that attain the goals towards that, but we're always open to adding other progress goals at any point in time for any hospital system, clinic, or provider. So that leads us to, once we get data, what do we do with it? We're going to be monitoring all different types of data that comes through, whether it's blood sugar or blood pressure. And we want to use this data eventually for our machine learning AI program, so that when we are past parameters, when we reach certain goals, or I shouldn't say certain goals, but if we reach a certain problem point where blood pressure is high, we can use that to alert a doctor's office. We can alert primary care, like a nurse or a PA. Our goal is to try to keep people out of the hospital in urgent care. So if we can utilize a system of working through the data we're getting, pushing it through the mobile app and alerting, PCP, and keeps you from going to the ER for a blood sugar spike, where they can help you with just taking the med properly through a HIPAA compliant chat or through a video visit. We'd rather do that because it also takes the burden off of hospital systems. It takes the burden off of large payers that they'd rather see you pay a tiny, video visit fee than a large ER visit fee. We're also going to be looking at basically monitoring progress goals. And so this is just kind of a general example of what we do. Currently, the original app that we obtained was tested in Spain, and they were looking at it from adherence point of view for postoperative care. And so we wanted to find out that if a person can maintain goals, let's use postoperative care as an example. But let's say you are, post knee replacement, and you have to be on a CPM regularly. Well, if you can monitor the CPM, and that CPM can send data, we know whether you've been on that CPM 8 hours a day like the doctor's prescribed. And if you're not, those data points can show up and even alert a doctor if you're not. The same thing with other areas of concern. So if we created a program based on trying to maintain a level blood sugar, and your doctor wants you to obtain a level blood sugar by the blood sugar monitor, and you're not maintaining those goals or not doing it on a regular basis, well, then it can alert the doctor. If a blood sugar spikes or drops considerably, again, you can alert the doctor. If you're doing nutrition intake, and you see blood sugar spikes, well, you can pull the nutrition report and see what's happening with the blood sugar at the same time to see what their nutrition is, and that may be something that you can intervene through education. And so there's a lot of different ways to aggregate the data and use it for management of healthcare. So this is kind of our ecosystem. I always like to use a slide. Somebody created this for us, and it's nice, but the patients are always in the center. I mean, that's our goal. Right now, the patients, I feel like if you were to do this on what healthcare looks like, it's providers and payers at the very top, and patients are way at the bottom or way on the corner. And I feel like that if you put patients in the center and empower them, they can do that. And so through our system, what we do is we empower through token incentives. And there can be a lot of different ways to earn those incentives. First one is just start a medical record. You start a medical record with us, we provide you access to that medical record through a bank of tokens. And so a token access is, if you have one token, that gives you 6 months worth of access. And we provide you the first 2 years for free. But we know that if you follow very simple plans and very simple nuggets that actually help with your healthcare, you can actually earn tokens very quickly. So you'll never not be locked out of your medical record at all. And so if you maintain wellness objectives that you work with your physician on, if you're taking your vitals or medication regularly, if you're allowing usage of your data for mining purposes, for research, for clinical trial matching, for any of those things, all those things can can lead to earning tokens in our system. And there's many ways of redeeming them. We feel like that when I've seen certain pilot programs for redemption, they work really, really well in the home healthcare, and that's where I was for the last 7 years, is that if you can figure out ways to motivate people through extrinsic or intrinsic motivating factors, you find the balance between what works for you through our token system. And you can redeem them for a lot of different things. Shopping, travel, gift cards, airline miles, all these things, plus other areas that we'll discuss later. And so that leads me to a healthy blockchain ecosystem. It's one of my favorite slides, because really what I'm after is this. As a group, I should say, what we're after is becoming part of a larger group that their sole goal is absolutely focused on patient health. All right. So when I put the word collaborators all over the place, because I like that word. And so what we're looking at is finding those companies in the blockchain space that are doing something that we're not doing. Our goal is to build the record, build the mobile app, build the AI platform for matching. But there are other companies out there that are doing very niche things that we are not. And we choose not to because they're the experts in their field, whether it's identity management, whether it's medical reconciliation. There are companies that are trying to spin up self-insured pools. There are companies that are doing credentialing. There are companies that are doing genomic data aggregation and radiology. I could talk to you about companies out there that can use an AI platform and for less than a penny can diagnose off of a CT scan with 99.9% accuracy, but they're not allowed in the United States yet. But you're seeing companies out there that are going to do great things in blockchain. And so our goal is not only to be able to provide that data resources, but what we want to do is become an open source platform by creating APIs, FHIR integration, HL7, whatever it takes. We don't want it to be a barrier to be able to connect with us. We're even reaching out to other electronic health record companies and saying this: We don't have to be competitors. We can be collaborators. You can, there are going to be people who travel, let's say in California, there could be a health record that's dominant there, and they may travel to Texas where we're based out of. And if a patient needs to have access, they can connect to our, record system, bring over their data, see a doctor, be involved in the care, and then once they're done and they go back, that data moves back with them. Our goal is not to be treating patients like they are right now, which is siloed data, no interoperability, no integration. That should change, and that's where we're going to talk later on after Choka is done with his technical side. But I really want people that are involved in healthcare ecosystems to also realize that you don't have to be on the blockchain to be part of an ecosystem like this. If there's ability for us to connect and gather data or share in those data streams that are permission data access, we want to be able to do that. And so there's still a lot of things to be able to work out, but we're already creating this healthcare consortium, and we're in talks with about 8 to 10 different companies who could become potential partners in an alliance, and that could lead to significant changes in the way healthcare delivery is done. And so people always ask, because we are a token-based system, we are going through an ICO ourselves. The ICO actually is April 1st. We're actually in a whitelist period. So if you do go to amchart.io, you can sign up for the whitelist. It also can help you sign up for our newsletter, which I do send out on a weekly basis to let people know what's going on. Those people that want to join us, unfortunately, it's only open to those outside of the United States, not in the United States for the public sale. Our pre-sale ended, 15th of March. And we did very well, but our goal is just develop out the platform. So if you want more information on there, I'd be more than happy to share that to you. But at least wanted to give you my slide with my information. That is my email address. Please, that's my personal email address. You're always welcome to email me if you have questions. That is my personal cell phone number as well. So you're more than happy to call me directly or text me. I'm pretty open about conversing with anybody who has interest. But the main goal for us is for you to understand an overview of what we're trying to do. But the biggest goal for us is using AMCHART as the basis for something bigger. And that's where we work with you as far as the healthcare ecosystem and go from there. So that's it for my part of it. We'll pass it along to Choka, who can talk to you a little bit more about the technical details, which I have to tell you that Choka has been working with us probably since mid to late last year, and we have to be honest with you, nothing works without him. He has been a blessing to us as part of our organization, but also as a good friend, and so we're always very thankful for the lead as a developer from his side. So I will pass it along to him.
All right, thank you so much, Aman. What a tremendous presentation. Choka, we're seeing your whole screen instead of a presenter view. If you could, get that fixed. Let's see how that goes. Perfect.
All right.
And then if you want to swap webcams.
Yeah, I'm trying that one. Hold on.
All right.
Can you guys see
me? Yep, sure can.
All right.
Thanks so much. Take it away.
All right. Hey, thanks, Aman, for the kind words on this great presentation. All right. So it almost looks like Aman spoke my slides for. So I don't know. I have some technical stuff, but he probably touched upon this. So to start with, you see a couple in this diagram. You see a couple blockchain. This is the you have the public one and the private one. The private one being the validating entities is hyperledger sawtooth. I should have stated that here. And then there's a public. So there's a AMCHART blockchain platform operates across two different blockchain environment, which is the public and the private, and you see the participants in the around the blockchain itself. So you see the patient, you see the professionals in the clinic, and then there's the hospital. So the way, so there are a couple of ways you could access the platform itself. So one is the patient. one is the digital, using the digital assets. So patient, that's the entry point for the patients, right? So they need something, and there could be other means by which they could access the platform. So if a patient has to have AMC token to be able to access, so the way it's a ERC20 token. So and that's a way they log in using they first transfer some tokens to their wallet, and when they log in using one of the identity providers. So we are working with a few identity providers, and to be able to log into the system. For now, for the MVP purposes, we are using Uport, and there are a couple other implementation we have done so far, but the login works like this, right? So they get to the dashboard, they see how much tokens they have, and then they gain access to the platform. And that's just how it will be in production as well when we go live. And then the professionals in a clinic or a person in a hospital, they'll have the regular user ID, password, or whatever secure access mechanism that the institute or the hospital or the facility provides, right? So that won't be using any digital asset. It'll be regular authentication. And so the other component you see is SecureDB. So we are working on a couple of technologies to store the data store. So that'll be a hash reference from the private chain to the data store, and that could be the couple technologies we're working on are Big Chain DB, IPFS. But depending on the regulatory guidelines, we might just move it to instead of a decentralized data store, we might just get into a distributed data store. So I'm thinking about GDPR at this point, where they ask you to where you need to confine your or put geography specific data. And so if it's a decentralized and if it's spread across the world, that's going to be tricky to just delete things, and also the ability to forget the data, right? And so in a blockchain, it's going to be again tricky to just delete stuff of a blockchain, although it's a private network. So that's the gist of it. This diagram is just a broad stroke. In a broad stroke, that's what is happening here. And the reason you see the transaction, the submit transaction SDK keys is just a representation of the cryptographic keys to just log into the network. So there is this cross-chain component between the public and the private network, but the cross-chain is not similar to what when you say cross-chain, people talk about atomic swap, right? So for example, there was an implementation between, I think, Decred and some other public chain where you need to exchange tokens, one for the, or swap the token one for the other. So that's not this. So I just want to make that clear. When you see a private and a public, sometimes I just use cross chain. I just use that freely, but I just want to make that clarification upfront that it's not anything like an atomic swap. It's just you get the digital asset, and then you account for the digital asset, and then based on how much tokens they have, you provide access to the private chain itself. So that's my slide one. All right. So in this slide, what I wanted to highlight was the different components that form the private blockchain, right? So there's a portal engine, there's a identity management part, there's a cross chain, and that's outside of Hyperledger Sawtooth. So again, that's an asterisk on cross chain, because I just want to make sure I get that part clear that it's not in swap. And identity management, we're working with a few identity providers to be able to onboard the patients. And this is so there are a couple of parts to it, right? So one, from the user standpoint, where you need to do a KYC. Basically, you need government issued ID to onboard the user to your system, right? So to make sure the person is who they are, and so there's that aspect that goes on the back end, and then you onboard the users, and then you keep a reputation score, and then you keep checking at regular intervals, and then there's an authentication and there's an authorization piece to it, and every time, and so there's some amount of caching that goes on internal to Hyperledger Sawtooth. So when they log in, you're not hitting the blockchain, and there's not like a whole lot of read. You're not trying to read a lot of things from blockchain. So there's the internal outside of the third-party integration. We also do some internal authentication and authorization. Inside that box, Hyperledger Sawtooth transaction processor, you see different functional elements: clinical data, population health, practice management, e-prescribing, in data prescriptions, subscriptions, and the clinical data is just your integration, fire integration to different EMR systems, population health, to wearables, or any other devices that in practice management. It could be a third party. We are thinking about a third party integration with that one. So some of those are pluggable, some we build, and so these are internally coded as a transaction processor in Hyperledger Sawtooth with the definition of we have the transaction family defined within the transaction processor. And from an integration standpoint, you have the Wellness Care API, then the Fire API gateway. This for third-party integration, again from other sources, and the Analytics API to get the to integrate with our big data platform. So and then you see the IoT gateway. Again, it's more on the streaming component that would just get data from devices and then stream it to the platform that we. It's a big data streaming platform where the gateway resides, which I'll show probably in the next slide or maybe the one after. All right, so this is by far my favorite slide. I can talk about it all day, but I don't want to get too technical on this one. So what you see here is like a blockchain components, as you can see, they're all Dockerized, and there's a service mesh, mesos, and then there's a streaming aspect of it on the left side, where you're collecting data from devices and other third-party integration and all of that, and then there's big data component a part of it here in the whole ecosystem, quote unquote, and then there is this network aspect, which is the SDN, NFV. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then there's this imaging cluster that's going to take this data from health institutions or organizations. So as you can see, this is although it's a blockchain environment, right? So but a lot of those patterns that you see are you can relate to a traditional distributed system, distributed environment that you might see in a rather larger environment, larger companies. So and a lot of those principles, patterns that you follow in a bigger company also is being followed here. There's nothing very different so I'll talk about, let me first address the Sawtooth node itself, right? So you need all of these validators, and they have a consensus, and there's a consensus that goes on, a POET consensus that we have right now with Sawtooth. And then there's this challenge in a private permission network, because you need to now deploy these containers on cloud, on-prem. It could be and then they all need to be part of the consortium. So if you haven't talked enough about the consortium, we are building a consortium. Then there's going to be a member. There's going to be members who will be part of the consortium. And it could be a clinic. It'll be a larger hospital. And now we figured out a way where we need to send up these nodes. And we will be using Docker containers, but it could be bare metal as well. And so we just need to form this node, and then and the challenge then becomes, how do you then deploy this across different institutions, right? And we are building the CI/CD pipeline, and could be and this will be on Mesos, and with in addition to Kubernetes. And then with the Kubernetes, it could be a pod that we just deploy on different system, and then and hopefully they all work together, right? The challenge here is now there's a cybersecurity challenge here, right? So now you are increasing a threat vector, where you have these nodes are operating across different infrastructure, different environment where we have little or no control. So one of the things we plan on doing is having an SDN level. So there's a there's this, the threat posture is going to be similar like any other traditional organization. So we'll protect against everything that we know of. And then in addition to that, we want to put SDN type of layer on top of the network layer. So you'll have this network plane, then you have the data plane, and then controller plane, sorry, and then you have the data plane on top of it. That's just going to communicate. That's just going to monitor all this traffic and see, and then look for any kind of threats on top of this network overlay, right? And then if there is something, if we find any kind of overlay or anything like that, we're going to record that, and that could be a separate blockchain that can be shared across different across all the nodes. So we are looking at different we're looking at ways we can protect all of this nodes that's really outside our control, right? And be able to report back to us that these are just good. But from a blockchain perspective, you don't see a lot of data being it's like too much. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. So in a blockchain environment, you're not going to see a lot of data being hacked, or because we're going to encrypt it, and then we are going to it's encrypted, and you're not going to see people, even if they get to that point, it's not going to be able to hacked, or because of different protection you have across different components. But you still we want to make sure that these are protected at the network level, and then that and the protection are very granular to the component level. So it's and that's just the cybersecurity part of the whole diagram, right? So, and then the other part is the streaming protocol. So it's a distributed network. You have all of this AMCHART components all there. So that's like horizontally scalable and all of this good stuff. Then this is messaging Kafka, and there's a CQRS, which is like command query model, where your data store and the query are going to be separated. So there are like this pattern is pretty common, and if you are running in a streaming, if you are in a streaming network, you would know that and you would have seen this pattern being implemented in a lot of places. So there's just a streaming, and then there's this. It's actually a Lambda architecture if you look at it closely, because there's this streaming architecture, and then there's a big data batch processing that goes on, where you have this data that you process through the same system. So depending on the kind of data you get, either it's a batch processing or it's a streaming data. Our big data architecture is able to process and produce, this could be concurrent data that are just hitting the system. And keep in mind that these are all anonymous. Any analytics that we are going to be running are on anonymous data. De-identified data, I meant. So that's the analytics portion of it. And then, like I said before, the decentralized database is something, something we are evaluating across different products. And so it could be a decentralized or distributed data store. So the difference being, like, decentralized is something really decentralized. You have an exact copy of those things across all the nodes. Whereas your distributed is something like a MongoDB. You have shards instead of exact copy, replica of the data being replicated across all the nodes. And yeah, that's just about it from this. And then Linkerd, right? So that's a service mesh, if you've known. It provides this added layer, like the service discovery, routing policy, and metrics, and all of that good stuff. In addition to Mesos, what Mesos provides out of the box. Right. Over to the next slide. All right. So this is a derivative of the second slide I showed you earlier. In there's this AMCHART core integration. So on the left side, you see a lot of those integration components. And this AMCHART core is like a file. It's actually an internal integration engine where different internal tools or applications just connect and interchange data. And then there's a FHIR integration. From a FHIR standpoint, it basically acts like an HIE type HI-based component, and then this third-party sources, that would be the developer ecosystem where we want to put a lot of apps, that's where we integrate with the apps that are going to be sitting on top of our platform itself, and then the members, which is our patients or users who are connecting to our platform. So a word on the third-party sources. So in addition to building an AMCHART product, we want to build this ecosystem of people who can really use our platform to be able to connect to store data on the blockchain and all of that. And so that would be from an integration standpoint, that would be just a REST API, JSON integration that would other applications connect. And so on the other, in the next box, you see the patient analytics, population health management, clinical outcomes, payer data, and service utilization data. And all of those are integration points. So what it does from from an integration standpoint is it allows you to integrate clinical information. Physicians can access data from multiple EMRs, and there's just one interface for you to, and then you develop functionality within it. So that allows you, from a patient standpoint, though, it allows to integrate with different devices, and that's in addition to the FHIR integration. Obviously, is from it's a different layer, but the communication point is also different. And it could be a resource-based model like what you have in FHIR, or it could be just something very proprietary to what we built. And then the next is the analytics part of it, and then the reports and API. And the analytics is the most important thing, right? So we want to build analytics to build this model for predictive outcomes in a value-based healthcare system, right? So we want to give that intelligence to the doctor or to the providers who are in the system. So, and if you have seen, and since they're in the blockchain, the question becomes, how are you going to get all of this data? Because these are all tied to the, it's all cryptographically secure. You have the private key, and then the only way you access the data is, you use the data, you use the key to be able to access your data, but how's and somewhere a system, if you are to run analytics, or if you want to do modeling on top of it, how are you going to do that on a multitude of data sets, right? So we plan to use something. We plan to use the project, open source project, openpine.org, and where you use there's this homomorphic encryption, and all your deep learning and AI ML are done inside this the secret this secure enclave, where all your models run within that, and you are not really exposing any of those data back, or you don't have to see any data outside of that secure enclave, right? So that's just one strategy to do that without having to expose data or read the data. And if you look at in most of you would have heard about this whole Cambridge Analytica thing going on with Facebook, right? So, and the reason it happens is because it's not a technology problem; it's because policy enforcement problem, or someone they just didn't pay close attention, or they just didn't care, right, to about the data, how it's being shared, and all of that. In a blockchain system, particularly, it's going to be tricky to do that, right? Because you have a cryptographic, it's cryptographically secure, and you have the only person who has access to the data is just the patient itself or the user itself, and you are not allowed. And so any of the analytics that you run, it has to be tethered to the key that the users got, and so it's going to be extremely difficult for even for someone like an AMCHART to just take your data and give it to someone else, or have someone else process it, right? So and that's one of the advantage of having your data on a decentralized system versus on a centralized store like a Facebook or some Google probably. We still have to be creative about how you use those analytics platform to be able to gain intelligence, right, and get predictive analytics on top of it. But there's a difference between leveraging your technology, especially AI, deep learning, versus abusing it, right? So in a blockchain world, it's more about leveraging the technology for positive outcomes, versus and there is very minimal risk for someone to do to run analytics to abuse it, because you can, even if you wanted to, because the technology doesn't support it. You're not able to just take your data set and just ship it to someone else. It's really possible. So that's one of the advantage of blockchain, and your data is really your data, and it's not something anyone can see. So this screen that you see is an MVP that we have going on right now, and so it's pretty straightforward if you really look at it closely. The user have the coins, a digital asset in their wallet. They sign in, using Uport in this case, but it could be any other in the future. It could be another provider, right? So, and they log in and then they go to the dashboard, like I said in the very first screen, and then they use and then they see the credits, right? So the credits again could be based out of your AMC token. It could be based out of fiat currency, and then they look at, okay, you have access for, you know, and you have access for like, let's say 6 months, and then you go, and if you run out of the tokens, and then you go and refill your digital asset, so to speak, and then you gain access to it, and then you're allowed access to the system. So this is from a patient experience, right? Patient user experience standpoint. And then you do a transaction, right? And then you see Sawtooth provides a REST API to connect to the transaction to the blockchain, and then the business logic and all of that goes in the transaction processor. And excuse me. And yeah, and the one of the reasons we really love Sawtooth is because of the flexibility it provides to plug in all of these different technologies, right? Now we use Node.js and in Java, some Java. Java isn't really up in the maturity scale, but I'm a Java guy. I like Java, so but my idea is to put a lot of those components, backend components, on that doesn't really require any kind of interface to Sawtooth, a validator, and it just in our engineers who are using Node.js, they just use the SDK to interface with the validator to do the business logic. Like they can write the handlers, and they can use the transaction families and all of that. But for something like if we for a distributed computing environment access, then we'll have an abstraction layer where that exposes the REST API, and the Node.js backend can call this the backend analytics platform. So that's just the screen. So why Hyperledger Sawtooth, right? We get this question a lot. So there's Fabric, there's multi-chain, why Sawtooth, right? So here are the reasons: on-chain governance, pluggable, right? So it's where it's configurable, so it's got like self-executing smart contracts that on-chain governance to vote on blockchain configuration. So people can vote on configuration settings, such as like who's allowed to participate in a permission. In a permission ledger type thing. Then advanced transaction execution engine allows for parallel execution, really efficient, but we haven't really tested it, but that's what it seems. And support for Ethereum, we use Ethereum. We use Hyperledger Burrow to work with this one. So there's a SFTP interface that goes. So the interesting part is, since our public chain is on Ethereum, and then we have Ethereum virtual machine. So we're able to mirror some of those activities or digital asset that goes on the public side of things in our private network. So that's a very handy thing to have. And then this is dynamic consensus, quite proof of elapsed time. And the thing is, it allows to shift. It allows to move to another consensus if you have something later on. If you want to switch to something else, so it's completely pluggable. So we like that. And then broad language support. So we use JavaScript primarily, some Java, and the one with the asterisk don't have maturity level at this point. But Python, Go, or JavaScript are pretty mature, and you can use those SDKs to write your business logic and all of that good stuff. But we use a fair amount of Java to interface with other backend components. And then the most important thing is the security, and in the security because it has a trusted execution environment where it creates this hardware based on Intel SGX. So you're able to run securely some code and selected data inside a trusted execution environment, and that gives you added security. It's a hardware-based security basically, and that seems to be much better than any competing or a similar blockchain. And Intel specifically has been Intel have been very helpful to us, to implement the solutions, right? So it's a big shout out. I want to give a big shout out to guys who've been helping us, Kelly Olson, and then Dan Middleton. I mean, we have been, these guys hang out in the Rocket chat, and we have questions. Our engineers hang out there, and then if you have any questions, you ask them, and they get response pretty immediately. Very helpful. And David Olding from Intel, and so they've all been helpful, supportive. So we can, this is a great framework and a great support, and a great team to be to associate with, right? So we especially like the community, and that helps a lot to just build AMCHART as a product. And that's my last slide. All right. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was absolutely exhilarating to look at the engineering depth that you were willing to share with us on this webinar. It really speaks to the philosophy of open collaboration that you have at every level of the organization. That was really striking to me. Your willingness to share that much of your architecture and design around your MVP. That's tremendous. So thank you for that. Ahmad, any reactions to initial reactions to everything that Choka had to say?
That's why you have a CTO. That's why you have a CTO, so you don't have to deal with all the nitty-gritty of all that stuff. But the main thing I would probably have to say is that's the way we should be. I mean, most of this technology is available, right? It's all available to anyone. It's how you put it together, and if we put it together in a way that also provides a framework for any other organization or company to take what they want to do, their vision of something, and put it together on it, we'll be more than happy to share our resources. We'll be more than happy to share our knowledge. We'll even help them push it along, because if they can become part of something we're not doing, that's even better, right? So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to make myself presenter again, just over the course of our dialogue. We will have this is our background here. All right. So many questions for you all, and we went a little long on our time, but I think it's fantastic, and I'm actually really glad that we did. It's encouraging. We already have a lot of questions coming inbound from the audience. So to keep with our 10 o'clock end time, I think what I want to do is get some fundamental questions that I was writing down and that I suspect our audience will have as well. First of all, MVP is not most valuable player, FYI. That's minimum viable product. if anyone happened to be wondering that, although I would say that Choka and Arman are absolute MVPs in a sports in a sports context. So I would really like just to pick up on the thread that we were just on regarding Intel SGX. So that stands for Software Guard Extensions, and you talked about the trusted execution environment. Something that comes up frequently with that model is it does create a hardware dependency and a trust relationship that's perceived with Intel. I think the shout out to them as excellent collaborators has been fantastic. Could you speak a little bit to within the Hyperledger umbrella, a little bit deeper about SGX as a technology and what that gives you that's not available under even other open source Hyperledger projects like Fabric, for example? And maybe Choka, you could take that, and Aman, I'm sure you have thoughts as well.
Yeah, so Fabric does provide some kind of private channel, but we really like the fact that it's hardware based, it's secure, and it's been there for a long time, for a while. I wouldn't say a long time. So it's since it's hardware based, it's really hard to be able to hack, and you can put like select code or select data in it, and it just gives you, we're going to have our protection, but to know that a company like Intel supports the data, it just gives us it's just much better than doing something that just the framework itself provides. So this is just an additional layer.
Yeah, I think why we really did it is because we wanted to have the most confidence in our system at this point in time. There are other technologies and other open source things that are available, but we just felt like the value and the technology that Intel offers was probably the best fit for what we're trying to do. The last thing you need is for any breach of any kind. And so, I mean, we're hyper vigilant on our security measures. And so we felt like SGX was just that one extra piece that actually, honestly, lets us sleep at night a lot better, and it allows us to really feel confident what we're trying to build. If there's something else that comes out, will we explore it? Absolutely, we can. But at this point in time, it just fits right in our build without
exactly.
Yeah.
And the Ethereum support is excellent as well for cross-chain interop. So one of the ways that I've conceptualized it is this: we're accustomed in our industry to thinking about encryption and transmission and encryption at rest. And SGX really is a breakthrough technology about a way to have encryption in use, if you will. I don't know. Do you think of it that way, Choka, as what's occurring on chip in terms of it being decrypted and processed against in this hardware environment on the chipset, as opposed to in cache or in other kinds of system levels?
Yeah. So from a software standpoint, you could get to that point. It's just that even from a performance standpoint, right? So there's a lot of security level processing that goes on, and so when it's done at the hardware level, it's just much faster, and it's secure. With the software level, there's going to be some latency, and first of all, getting that trusted TE can also probably be done outside of the hardware itself, the chip itself. It just accelerates your processing time, and so it's better that way as well.
Okay, well, thank you. So next question, a couple topics I'd love to discuss before we open it up to the audience. One of them is sort of a little bit of a roadmap discussion about what a healthcare provider organization might go through in terms of steps in evaluating and partnering with your organization. And I think maybe there's a substantial question and some of the ways that you're different from other blockchain-based personal health record plays where you're actually going for a complete EHR that I like your phrase. I think it's patient-centric and provider-friendly, as opposed to a strictly patient-oriented platform. So maybe you could speak a little bit to the legacy install base of EHRs and scenarios about in when healthcare provider organizations maybe different frameworks where they might work with your technology within your ecosystem.
Well, that was one big question there, Heather. But yes, one of the things that I wanted to do was I came from a multidisciplinary group, so I practiced in the midst of orthopedic surgeons, neurologists, specialists and chiropractors and physical therapists, and we were all trying to work on the same system, but we all had different things that we were looking for, different things that we had needed as far as a record. And so one of the reasons I say provider friendly is because there's sometimes when you look at a medical record itself, there's just way too much stuff that needs to be filled out or isn't. And what we're trying to do is do two things. One, we've talked to a couple of organizations that actually, and it's a unique thing, and we're still in the midst of working it out with them. But once we have data from a patient, if you're an orthopedic surgeon or if you're a neurologist or if you're a therapist and you basically want to have an encounter with them, the data will actually show up for the person what they need to see. And so they'll actually get to see so if you're an orthopedic surgeon, you want to see certain data on their MRIs or their CT scans or whatever, and you need to see that. A physical therapist may not need to see that. Now, if you go to an ER specialist wants to see everything, right? So the goal is how do you present it to somebody so that it's intuitive, it's easy to manipulate, it's easy to use. And I know Choga and I actually had a visit, with looking at ways of making the experience better. We even had a conversation at the Design Institute for Health, whose sole focus is how do you make the provider and patient experience better. And so we had a glimpse of what it could look like. And these people there's like 15 to 30 designers. Their sole goal is to make the interaction with patients better, to be more intuitive, more patient-centric, more empathetic, and those are the kinds of things you need. And so when we approach, currently when we're approaching healthcare organizations as far as how do they maneuver or they come to us, one of the biggest issues is if you're a large hospital system and you've had a large implementation of an EHR, the chances of you changing are quite small, and healthcare moves very, very slowly when changes are supposed to occur. So our goal has been to go after areas and healthcare providers and institutions that see the biggest pain points. Community clinics have the biggest issues with a lot of low-end health issues and decreased access to good data. So we're approaching them, and we've had really good buy-in from them. For small medical practices, we've had good buy-in from them. We've talked to rural hospitals who don't have big implementations of larger legacy systems, and they have buy-in because if they can have systems and access to newer technology that can provide them with better access to data, improved care coordination, and improved health education, they're going to take it every time. And so we're looking at that way, and our goal is to work with them on the best way to integrate our platform with old legacy systems and pull that data and maybe have a push and pull relationship, or just to be, if they want to move to us directly, then we'll figure out the pathway to forklift all their data over. I don't know if that answers your question fully.
It kind of does, and a follow-on question for that, and this is again to some of your differentiators in the space. That is not an option that most blockchain-based medical record organizations are going after, where there is the possibility to have full meaningful use to become the total EHR. So I recognize that the integration option is present and probably more probable and likely, but the fact that you're going for let's call it full meaningful use is a substantial differentiation. So with that, do you see meaningful use stage 3 and the 2018 timeline for all of that playing a role in the way you're going to market and your timeline for all of this? And do you see? Okay, I'd love to hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a plain nutshell, yes. Our goal is to get the timeline and do that. And in fact, we brought on business analysts whose sole focus is to look at how to incorporate that into our platform. And so, there are lots of things that I can do. There are lots of things that Choga can do, but there are lots of things we cannot do. And so you bring in people that are smarter than you in implementing those things into our healthcare plan and record. and that's their job. And so our goal is to see how far we can get with it, and really see if we can push the envelope on creating a blockchain-based ecosystem that does have that as part of it.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So, and
it won't be
Choka,
easy. I'll tell you that much. It won't be easy, Heather. It's not going to be easy.
It's real.
So,
it's really ambitious.
I won't lie. It's a daunting task in itself, but if you're gonna be a platform that lots of people can use long term, then you have to have those parts and implement it into your system.
So with supporting, with Being For You Stage 3, Choka, you talked about fire support. What is your thought about making, so let's say in our best case scenario of standards adoption, we're still talking about lots of unstructured data that lives outside CCDs, that is in open text, and certainly, training AIs to discern insights against those is a huge opportunity, and you have spoken to that extensively. But at a tactical level, maybe a few comments would be great about, as you're pulling in data, you're going to have some subset of it that is against the FHIR standard, and then you're going to have unstructured data that needs, in order to be provider friendly, needs to be presented. I'd love to just hear a little bit about how you're intending to work with that blend of standard FHIR compliant data and then blobs. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the API layer that we have on top of, we have like several extension access points, and then one of those is to get data and then do the transformations, right? So we are looking at different data set, unstructured data and then structured data, and then HL7 and anything outside of FHIR, and to make those transformations. Some of like I showed in one of the slides, we have some architecture like the Lambda architecture is talking about from the analytics standpoint that would just take the data, ingest that, and then put it into a format we really want. So it's pretty extensive, and we have engineers who done that kind of transformation in the past. And it could be just a typical ETL type transformation to something that there are just streaming type transformations that are done in the pipeline. So we have a very exhaustive list of pipelines that we have set up from end to end that can do the transformation. And it helps that a lot of those implementation that we are doing is on JSON and similar similar standards, and so I think we are heading to that direction where we can take any data set and then ingest and get it to a format we really need.
Yeah.
Aman, do you want to comment on that as well, or move to next?
Yeah, what he said.
What he said. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you mentioned a wallet solution, and a couple of things I wanted to ask, and this would intersect with identity management. I'd love to hear how you're handling in a little bit more detail the identity question with respect to patients, both in terms of matching with legacy data and authenticating in using the AMC token. And that's particularly interesting. I think the incentive structures are, discussed extensively in this field, for rewards and goal achievement and consenting and permissions and things like that. I'd love to hear a little bit about that. And then we have this problem of patients losing their keys and key management, and maybe multi-sig approaches. Just maybe some comments about the wallet solution and tokens for access would be helpful.
Was this maybe to me or Aman? Oh,
yeah, no, you can answer. It's fine. I'll let you start with the identity part and stuff, and I'll chime in.
Yeah. So on the identity part, people using the keys, having them on board is something we thought through, and it's about they just need to go through the KYC process, get themselves onboarded, and we can then map that to the store, to the identity mechanism data store that we have, and that's pretty straightforward. And we can do that. We just need to get them onboarded one more time, and then create a new wallet, and then have them in. We can obviously do anything with the digital assets itself on the public domain if they lose that, but to get them access to the platform should be pretty straightforward. And on the digital assets side of things, what was the question? Was it about
how the tokens are being used for access control versus
correct. So there's this intermediate layer that I touched upon like a little bit. So there's this dashboard that accounts for that goes and checks the public Ethereum, and it shows how much the digital asset you have, what the value of it, and all of that. And then based on that, we provide access. So it's like it's a layer between private and it's a Web3 JS basically, and it just queries and allows you access to the platform itself. And we could end up having more than just one kind of digital asset. I mean, as in way to access the platform. Aman, what do you think? Are we going to be using just AMC, or it could be more than that?
Yeah, it could be more than that. I mean, we've talked about that before. We don't want to be limiting in that factor if somebody does have another digital asset that could be accessed. We want to explore those, explore that and see if it's viable for us or not. But again, it comes down to being able to monitor the value of what they have and the number that they have, but also to make sure that it can match up into our system too. So, I mean, it's another layer of development, but again, we're not trying to be agnostic to one thing. So we want to make sure we provide flexibility in all manners. So could it be? Absolutely. Could you exchange it out? Yeah, absolutely. So, but I think we'll let the consumer also help us decide too. If there's a big need for it, then it's something we should consider.
That's really interesting. So you all, I mean, back to this theme of ecosystem building, open systems interop, collaboration. You're even open to considering token interop with partner companies. That's
sure.
That's unusual. That's interesting. So I feel like we could keep going for several hours, but I can't believe how fast our time is going this evening. Okay. We've got some great questions coming from the audience. I think to make sure that we don't run out of time, we should begin that. But before we get started, so audience, this is your call out. Please start or continue documenting your questions. We already we have a bunch coming in, but while we're doing that, and while you're writing, let's do our second poll, which is really looking at whether you would like to be connected into this ecosystem. And we're calling it the AMCHART blockchain ecosystem, but I think Aman, you made an excellent statement about how you're not seeing it as your ecosystem, but rather you're looking to be a participant in this.
Correctly. I think all of us should be knights of the round table in this ecosystem. So it's more of a healthcare blockchain alliance that I'd like to do, and we're just a part of it. I think everybody should have equal say in it, and equal opportunity. So yeah, I appreciate you saying it's AMCHART blockchain ecosystem, but that's not really what it is. We'd like to just be maybe the connector for everybody. How about that? So that'd probably be the better thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're at 48% voted. So for those of you who haven't voted yet, please come on and give us your opinion here of what you would prefer. Our policy is not to disclose ever contact information unless you expressly say that you want us to. So that would be the only scenario where that would occur. Yeah, it's definitely. I'm excited to be part of this ecosystem that that several are coming together to form. And I think it speaks to the need for us to think differently about how we collaborate in a way that sort of corresponds to the different architectures we're dealing with. You know, we need a different philosophy of business as we're approaching these. Okay, we're almost finished with our poll. Last couple coming in, and thank you. So we have, so here's our results. This is exciting.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, so this is great.
So let me
Thank
go
you.
back to that. I think before we take the questions, let's use that as an example, right? So for us,
Okay.
you know, if we're partnering with you at Obesity PPM, one of the things we have is the mobile app. We're trying to take a look at things like, let's just use obesity and diabetes as an example, because that's a big emphasis for you, and that's a big emphasis for us too. So when we monitor different types of data that's coming through the mobile app, which could be scale weight, it could be blood pressure, it could be blood sugar, any of all of those things. You know, sometimes people think of that as the incentive, right? You know, if you do those, you know, those data points, then you're going to earn incentives. Well, that's just one piece of it, right? Those are the things that we can aggregate and we can get. But the biggest way you make life change is to add components that you guys provide that we don't, which is the strong educational component, the strong interventional component, the strong one-on-one component that we don't. So when we work in an ecosystem together, we're providing one piece, you're providing the other piece, but together that actually creates life change and lifestyle change for a patient that could lead them. And then the token can just be one of those incentives or rewards that just is a byproduct, just like the scale weight is a byproduct. It's not the end goal. That's the byproduct of what you guys do at Obesity PPM. That's how you create the partnership, and that's how I feel it could work, right? And that's just an example off the top of my head, right? So.
Well, I think that's an excellent example, and I know one of the things we both share passionately in terms of looking at incentive structures of this industry, of incentivizing controllable patient behaviors versus endpoints that they don't control. And in complex chronic diseases with massive social determinants, those are critical shared values among our various participants. So let's see. I am going to start out our question session with Dawn A, and I think I may mispronounce your name, Arya Kumar. So I'm looking for you on the attendee list, and I'm going to take you off of mute in just a moment. So as I'm looking for Don, he has a question about HIPAA compliance and how the hybrid chain model that you've put together, how do you defend its HIPAA compliance? And I'll follow on with that as I'm still looking for Don here. Where is he? Oh, it looks like we may have lost Don over the course of the event. He's not showing up. But I'll ask that question anyway. And have you been through a compliance review and a security review with health system partners in this, or is that part of your roadmap that you're working on right now?
So we are working on it right now. It's an ongoing thing, and the data fundamentally is encrypted and at rest in transit, and we have cybersecurity controls all over the place. So even though it's a private permission blockchain, and our parent company, as part of we do managed services, that's a cybersecurity company. We have a cybersecurity offering, so we are strong in that part. So HIPAA definitely is on top of the list. And it's an ongoing process, right? So we are talking with a third party to do the audit for us, and make sure we are secure every step of the way. That's an ongoing thing. So yeah.
And I think we're about to have another one. I think we're about to have our first couple of them in the next couple of weeks. So the third party audit. So we've done our own, but we want to make sure that the third party looks at it too, and we will probably do it multiple times to make sure. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, just to reiterate what I think I heard from your presentation, in terms of PHI, you're not moving PHI onto any public blockchain infrastructure. So no PHI on Ethereum,
Correct.
and PHI in the distributed data layer under Sawtooth. Are you persisting PHI into the Sawtooth blockchain?
No, it's just a hash reference to the data that's being stored on a distributed data store. And that's about, even on the analytics side, like I said, it's just we are doing the processing using homomorphic encryption. Everything that happens, all the models, anything that we do are going to be inside. You don't get to see the data. It just gets processed within that enclave, secure enclave, and you don't have access to the data. We don't have access personally to the data, so.
Yeah, it definitely it definitely presents a number of challenges for training AIs, but on the other hand, we have to put cybersecurity and privacy first, regardless of challenges or not. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a question from David Sutter. So let me, David, this is a heads up. I'm taking you off of mute in 3, 2, 1. Hello, David. You had a question about. Yeah, hi there. Thanks for your question about utilities that don't exist specific to the blockchain. Maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit. I'd love to hear your thought.
So I think that I think you actually kind of clarified it a little bit in terms of how you add utility into the blockchain through your tokens. But I think the SEC itself, so the SEC kind of limit the actual utility of the token, and so you're currently going to be blocking out the US market. Or how's that going to work effectively when a patient from the US wants to come in and utilize his token, for example, with one of the hospitals?
Yeah, I misunderstood the context of your question. You're talking about utility token and the governance and the regulatory framework, Aman. Great question.
Right. I mean, I think what you're talking about is the fact that, hey, look, if you're not allowing U.S. citizens to become participants, how can they have access to it? Well, really, that's a regulatory issue as far as the ICO goes. But as far as building a medical record, as soon as they create their medical record, we are going to drop those tokens into their account to start their medical record itself. So they have 2 years access, and they can again still earn the incentives through the system. It's really from a it's unfortunate that the SEC has to be involved in not creating good guidelines to follow, but it's just the way that this ICO has been set up, and that's just the way that the SEC lawyers have set it up. But in the end, you're absolutely right. We want to make sure that everybody has equal access to the medical record, and we will. And that's the reason we didn't even want somebody to purchase a token. Our goal is the medical record and your data belongs to you, so we're going to do everything to empower you by going ahead and giving you the access right off the bat, so it's yours. And then from there, we're going to figure out plans on continuing to have that access by giving you simple incentive programs to continue building up your token bank for the duration of your medical record history.
Very good, good answer.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate your question. I'm going to go ahead and put you back on mute. Thank you.
Now, just to reiterate something, I hope that whether it's us or whether it's any other healthcare blockchain company that's thinking about doing a money raise in this fashion, the one thing that all of us want is just clear guidelines. If they would just provide clear guidelines, then I think every company would follow those rules and it would be fine. We just, we just haven't been given those. And I hope one day soon that whatever governing body is will provide that for everybody.
Yeah, there's no question that our industry is just begging for clarity. You've got a huge community of people totally willing to be compliant, and invested invested in that space. So that I've heard that message reiterated in every context. The next question we're going to take is from Lee Monshine, and it's a question near and dear to my heart. As I'm looking him up, he's asking about steps that are going to be taken around data validation off-chain, not specific to blockchain architecture. And I'm going to let him. He asked actually a really intricate question. And Lee, in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to please reiterate it verbally, taking you off of mute.
Okay. Hi. Great.
Hello.
Great presentation. So let me give a little more. You said it is intricate. Let me give it a little visualization. I come from a mathematical background in national security, where we're always trying to have maximum data for very critical decisions. So if you imagine in your mind a triangle with the lower left data and the apex analytics results and the right-hand base provider decisions, you know, what we're talking about within this context is kind of closing the loop around that triangle. However, there's something very important above the apex, and that is the actual patient reality, because there is always going to be a disjunction, hopefully not enormous, between the assumptions and the realities of the analytics results and the actual patient realities, what is happening inside. And what I'm concerned with is that, as I've seen, not just in mathematics, but also on the ground in hospital care, in the present system, very often doctors are making critical decisions based on the current electronic health records, which lack completeness, which include erroneous data. And we don't want to actually amplify that problem. We want to utilize this architecture, which I am very hopeful you can, to actually start to pull that upper piece down toward the apex. And I have a number of ideas about that, but you know, I wanted to basically ask an honest question. Are you, really I want to be illuminated. Are you thinking about applying some of the unique capacities that blockchain provides to do something about that validation gap? I'm being clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Choka, you want to take that first?
That's a very interesting question on the validation aspect. So we'll have to come up with the strategies, because the whole ecosystem surrounding the core thing is integration. So as we're going to ingest data from other systems, there is no at this point we haven't looked at a real data set with validation problems, but this is something we'll have to add on top of our integration. So that's a great question, but if you have any specific if you can add something very specific to that, like an example or something, we'll be happy to look at it. I can take we can take this offline too, but definitely. A great question.
I have thoughts of my own, but I was interested, which we could share, but I wanted not to take up the time when the audience wants to hear from you, not me.
No, that's a great question, yeah.
Okay.
No, hang on one second. That's the part of a good ecosystem, is when we can actually share ideas, right?
Yeah.
So we should be able to share those. And you know what you have to say is going to be important for somebody else in the audience. So we would never dismiss that. We want to hear from it. So we'd love to hear an expansion on that, because validation of good data is important, because there have been plenty of times as a practicing clinician where I've received erroneous data from my own provider in my own system. And so what we want to do is, how do we make sure, and those are things that our team is asking, and we've actually posed those questions to other people that are in data analytics, is how do we make sure that the data that comes in, that's either given to us by a patient or by a doctor, is right and true? And then on top of that, how do we know that if we pull data from a legacy system that comes into our system is also right and true? And so it's a difference when we know the data, like when we create the data ourselves. Well, we know that that's good and validated, and that's okay. It's the unorganized, chaotic data that exists out in the world. How do we make sure that is getting,
Yes.
like you said, that top part is getting close to the apex, right?
Maybe one comment. I think this whole thing
Sure.
complements what Heather was saying about how do we actually change behavior on the part of the patient. So how can we employ this ecosystem to modify behavior on the part of the provider gateway, from the nurses on, from aides on to the nurses to the doctors on up, that could be uniquely provided by the blockchain, by the strength and breadth of the blockchain environment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah,
so
no,
Lee,
thank you.
yeah, absolutely, Lee. I want to react to that a little bit as well. You sound like a person who may be interested in it's volunteer, but
Yeah.
but I'm leading a new standard activity at IEEE around patient data
Oh,
validation.
I'd be very happy to do that. I'm former MITRE Corporation staff, and we do a lot of that. We've done a lot of
There you
that.
go. There you go. See?
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
Get in touch with me, or I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, so we have this extraordinary capability of tracing data provenance,
Yes.
but we presently lack a standard for ranking, rating, quantifying, judging the cybersecurity posture, the integrity, the degree to which a particular piece of data ought to be filterable as included in a certain type of analysis. So we're
Yes.
looking at we're launching that work stream. It's early stage at the beginning of the standard, but hopefully it's an absolutely critical question. And we know, not to put it very bluntly, but blockchain is not a panacea that solves the garbage in, garbage out problem. It does
Exactly.
not solve that
Putting it
problem.
more simply, yes. Oh, I'd be happy to contribute, if I might, to the standards initiation effort.
Well, that's simply tremendous. And you certainly highlighted a challenge that we have at the industry level. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lee. I'm going to go ahead and put you back on mute. Look forward to following up.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so let me see, next questions. We're getting a lot of our questions are compliments, by the way. People are saying really nice things about you, Choka and Aman, which is very nice. Yeah. So our next question, Damodara Batula. I hope I pronounced that mostly correctly. I'm going to take you off of mute as I find you. But that question is, what has been your most painful point in building your platform to date, as of right now? I'm taking you off of mute. 3, 2, 1. Hello there.
Hi, Heather.
Hi there. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Nice to meet you. Thanks for your question.
Thanks for this session. As you rightly said, I'm just kind of curious, what has been your most painful point in building the platform so far?
Oh, so it's a new platform. There's like a little bit of learning curve there. And when we started out the platform, it was Sawtooth was 0.8, and we ran into this integration issues. But luckily there was Intel, right? So they have this very vibrant community on Rocket Chat, and we just go back and forth, and then we try to, and now we are at version 1.1, I think, and this whole idea of like, okay, what SDK to use, and and we ran into these issues, and we go back and forth, and then developing this expertise on, first picking the platform itself, right, and then developing these components on top of it using different different SDKs like Node.js. So when we started out, something would work on one SDK and it wouldn't work on the other, and so that was one thing, and then the other was getting a technology from a data store standpoint, right? So we've been evaluating different data store like HiPFS, BigChainDB, and then there is this Bluzell. So there are a few other, I'm sure our engineers were working on, and it's just getting to a point where, okay, is this is the data store something good for long term? Is there's a community behind it? What kind of a data, and then build an abstraction layer on top of it, so our developers can, the front end developers can do their thing, which is to call those APIs and all of that. So building those layers and then making the application developers' life easier to use this API to access systems underneath. There was a bit of a challenge too, because knowing that on the back end, on the underlying layer, we haven't still decided on certain things, but we are at a point right now that we can do. And then there's this regulatory thing about GDPR, and so navigating through all of that has been a challenge as well. So there are much more, but these three, I can remember just these three ones, the major ones that just comes to mind.
Okay.
Well,
okay, thank you. Thank you, Shuk.
Any follow-up question on that or comment, Aman, about what's been the toughest part of the journey?
I think initially, it's funny is there's a lot of things that go on in a build. Whenever you're dealing with new technology, there's always something new that pops up or something that doesn't work. But I think initially the biggest pain point was choosing the right platform for us, because if you think about it this way, the community of it's either you're a public blockchain person or you're a private blockchain person, right, or permissions, right? And nowadays, if you're not on a public blockchain, people kind of almost see you as a pariah, saying, "Why would you do that? You're not part of the open source community. You're not part of doing what we're doing." And for us, it's just to explain, hey, we're actually trying to do the right thing by protecting data, making sure that our platform is secure, and that's more important to us than actually being in one group or another. So that was the biggest point for me originally. But yes, I mean, Choka's touched on a few that have come up, and there will be plenty more that come up too. It's just part of a build. So.
And we might just end up going public, right? So at some point, and I've been looking at technology like Enigma and all of those are already promising, yep. And we had some informal chat with them. So on the eventually, as it matures, we might just try to experiment putting stuff, making sure that the patient privacy, security is the most important thing.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so much evolving so quickly. Enigma, QuantStamp, a whole additional security layers coming online. I think adaptability and resilience in terms of our willingness to not be too attached to these particular architectural frameworks this early. I love your really open and flexible approach around saying you're going to be adaptive. So Damodara, thank you for your question. I'm going to put you back on. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Our next questioner had me at cyber biosphere. That was it. So I'm going to take Natalie Marler off of mute here in just a moment. And Natalie has actually asked a series of questions that I know are going to be quite. We've got a focus on geographic information systems from an epidemiology perspective. Some really fascinating cybersecurity questions. Looking for you, Natalie, on the list. Oh, it looks like we lost Natalie. Oh my goodness.
That's not good.
Yeah, so many terrific questions. So this one needs to be asked for sure. Is GIS integration a priority for epidemiology in the patient ecosystem or traveler insurance or translational services and consider of variant regulatory agencies? Can SGX combine a two-factor auth with start and stop text capabilities for record viewing permissions? Excellent question. Makes me want to write a tome in response. Any quick reaction to that?
I'm actually thinking about the question right now. Hang on one second. So.
Yep.
run that question one more time. Run that question one more time. Let's start from the beginning. We may have to stop in the middle of it. So.
Yeah. So I think to encapsulate it, she's thinking about geographic information systems mapping mapping APIs to use from an epidemiology use case. And I think,
which is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, absolutely tremendous. And connecting that to travelers insurance, translation services, good stuff. I mean, this is a perfect example of why we're having this conversation right now. And to your point earlier about ecosystem partners, right? And experts from the epi side coming in with some brilliance to extend patient mobility globally.
Is it part of our build? No, it is not part of our build. I'll just tell you that much. But here's what I would say: is that if that's something that she wanted to do or focus on, like as a piece or a module of our platform, then if she approached us, we would figure out a way, because it's a great idea, a fantastic idea. How do we build that out and create those data sets to actually be used for those purposes? That would be it's fantastic. So if she wanted to approach us and say, hey, I would like to work with you in developing this, that's part of our ecosystem, is to help nurture and incubate other modules or other healthcare companies that would want to be part of our network. So I don't have the expertise in epidemiology. That wasn't my my degrees, but I will be more than happy to help her with a team that would get that going. If that's something that would help.
And that's one of the things with the open architecture.
The second question would be towards Choka, which would be the SGX part, right? So. Oh
no, I was just going to say that's the advantage of having this open architecture, right? So we have all of this interface points, in epidemiologists, someone who's building an app for that could just sit on that. So that would fit very well into the ecosystem. So even if that's a very theoretical idea, it's something we can build, like a POC type thing. We'd be happy to do that.
Yep.
It sounds excellent.
That'll be one we follow up with for sure. So we have a request from Peter Kamev to have a couple of minutes to express a point of view on the topic, and I think I'm going to unmute Peter now and hear what you have to say. Hey, Peter, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Well, thanks.
Nice to see you again.
Oh.
See, what I'm trying to say. I'm sure you know about the existence of DeepMind Health Company.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy, Ben Lorry guy over there, express very straightforward, very rough judgment on blockchain idea altogether. He said, okay, people want to call our solution blockchain based. It's okay, but actually we believe blockchain is big wasting of time and energy, of course. Now, it happened to be, I have the same experience like Ben. I still believe in solutions based on distributed ledger, of course. Distributed nodes, distributed computing is future of our in many places, including electronic health record processing. But blockchain attachment to distributed computing, to distributed ledger, a little bit above what may be needed. Now, Ben and DeepMind, they choose to use distributed ledger, yes, and what they call integrity of log system, or tracing of records and content using log system on different nodes. And we tried the same thing. Guess what? It works. It does. Without blockchains. Now, here's a thing. I mean, who I am to say things like that king is naked. It's a little bit above of my competency and probably knowledge base. But I believe I am right, and Ben helps me to get this thing a little bit deeper. That's all. I do believe possibility to use blockchain for electronic health record processing is there, and we tried very much similar platform we developed like you guys have. With one exception, we found solution for interoperability for what it really back end of this solution is ability to integrate existing records, existing stuff in the offices as it is. So it's kind of no need to build another infrastructure. You can use existing infrastructure with vanilla above using our solution. We found way how to use this data in different sources in theoretical way, not necessarily, and in practical actually, but it's still a lot of work ahead. So that's it. Heather, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I really like some response on this thing. How you see these guys, because I would love to work with you in like you offer this participation. It would be very healthy for anybody, for everybody, in fact. But what do you think about that?
Oh, we're willing to work with anybody and any organization. So if there's opportunity, you want to share your information, we'll be more than happy to have a meeting offline with you and see what the possibilities are to do that. We don't hold anything back. If we can provide value to you and vice versa, we can do something together. Absolutely, we want to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter. I'm gonna put you back on mute. I think we have time to take one more question, and then we can make our closing remarks and close out the event. I'm gonna take you off of mute, Tim Lackey. Tim says blockchains are the basic creation of data axioms. These axioms are then applied to data processes. Persistent data can only be chained from these axioms. How does your system create axioms in a global sense? So this is a semantically very interesting question. And Tim, I'm taking you off of mute right now. How are you?
Pretty good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I didn't catch the first part of the meetup. I was preoccupied, but I did catch come in a little bit later. So excuse me if my questions may be a little bit off base, but when I met up recently with the computational law for blockchain development meetup with Global, and it was very interesting that not only that I guess the foundation of most questions was the realm of law, meaning when you apply a use case in any type of process that you're developing, even in blockchain, it has to be linked to a jurisdictional location. And so that obviously is moving forward in a lot of development in blockchain. But also based on that, these axioms, which I consider things like my name, my address, my human ID, my patient ID, my biometric ID, my doctor ID, all these things that we consider as foundations in databases, the keys, the global keys, and they're referenced to names. We all use them every day. And so when a blockchain is created, it's created like Bitcoin to create a unique register for something. And when we create these unique registers as a society, we usually apply names to them, meaning my law ID, a law, a location, an address, so forth. And these are the things that we feel that blockchains do very well. They create these very basic things that are lists of unique IDs. So when you create a system, even though it's a blockchain or a permissioned or hybrid or so forth, these things need to come in and out of your architecture. How do you manage those global keys in and out of your registers, per se? So I know it sounds a little deep, but I mean, if you're dealing with Ethereum and a smart contract in Oracle's, things have to come in and out of these contracts, okay? And like in Solidity, you can create your own group of identities, all right? But then therefore you maintain them, but they're not global. So just maybe have you thought past that as a global reference of identities in this structure?
Yeah, so I can take that.
Yes, please.
So it's tied to the sovereign identity, right? So when a user log in, he's tied to he's got a cryptographic key that's tied to this authentication providers who have the key, and then your primary identifiers are then stored on in a data store, and we also have a MPI, master patient index, that would store some of those other attributes in addition to your primary authentic key that's being verified by this third-party authentication provider. So it's a combination of both. And every time we onboard a user and we do all of these checks to make sure the identity, the user is who he is or who he says he is, there's this repetition match we do after we onboard on a periodic basis and make sure these attributes that you just stated is all correct in our own data store.
So how do you manage the right to be forgotten?
And so that's one of the things we've been trying to come up with in terms of solution, right? So this would be a distributed data store versus decentralized data store, right? In an ideal world, for a blockchain purist, we want to be like decentralized, but because we are navigating through all of this GDPR and location specific issues, if you had something like just a decentralized store, then you're able to forget those data, and for that specific country, or for countries who have all of this regulation, and that's not quite possible because from a blockchain standpoint, you're just having a hash reference to this records in the data store, so it's easier. So it's at that point, from a data store standpoint, it is more it is like a typical your NoSQL or whatever, however you do with your RDBMS or NoSQL database at that point.
Okay, so if getting back to the axiom question, if I'm a patient and I've been given a global patient ID from a blockchain, and now from that I basically link your service as an authority ID on top of that service, and it goes down your rail, which is fine. But at the point where the self-sovereign identity management is where I come back to the axiom of the patient ID is in total control of the patient, and the patient can turn off and on to be forgotten. That's sort of where my mental is trying to go back around, is to make sure that the patient always has the ultimate key in a multi-sig agreement, even with your blockchain. So,
yeah, so absolutely, that's a great point, right? So they'll always have there will be control points where if they want to be forgotten, then they have the ability to do that, and the data that's there on the blockchain itself, it doesn't identify the user. It's just cryptographic reference to the actual data that's being stored in a data store. So if they want the data to be deleted, that's entirely possible, since your data store is not on a decentralized cluster at that point.
okay, so in your architecture, they do have that right.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Tim, thank you for the insightful question, and I want to bring your attention to we're at the closeout phase of this discussion now, and we're a little bit over time. So thanks for everybody's patience. We still have a large audience that's stuck with us this late. So one of the events we're doing in the near future is a deep dive on GDPR, and it'll feature both technical and attorney perspectives for US and EU jurisdiction. So I would encourage you to please keep your eye out on that one, and thank you. Any last remarks before I put you back on mute?
No, I'm good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Tim, putting you back on mute. So Aman, I'd like to invite you to make some closing remarks, and then Choka. Then I have a series of announcements to make, and we will close out the event.
Well, first of all, thank you, Heather, for putting this on, and thank you for the Blockchain and Healthcare webinar series. So we appreciate the platform to be able to just talk openly about what we're doing, but also to just start talking about how we can combine forces, even not only with you at a BCPPM, but people in the audience. And so that's the biggest takeaway I'd like for people to have, is that even though we're working on a project that's being built and that we want to be able to utilize data for patients' health, there are great people that have great questions and great thoughts, even like an epidemiology question that we're not doing, that we love to partner with and create a massive platform that really encompasses everything in the healthcare arena. It's a really big thought, but if we do what we're supposed to do well and everybody else does what they're supposed to do well, then you could really see a cool impact in what goes on in healthcare in the near future. So thank you again.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you so much for joining us. Choka.
Hey, so again, thanks so much, Heather, and thanks for everyone on the call for attending this one. And Aman said it all, right? So we're building this community. It's a more community-based thing, and it's an open architecture for developers who want to, leverage our system and check it out. Please, feel free to get in touch with us. We're happy to accommodate. Build this whole ecosystem and make it like a community thing instead of just one product. It's more of a platform, and we welcome all apps to be utilizing our platform.
Thank you, Choka. All right, so it's been a great pleasure to have AMSys Blockchain with us this evening. What a great dialogue! I feel like we could have spoken for 5 more hours to unpack everything involved in your very ambitious vision. And thank you for bringing such a sense of friendly, collaborative community to the space. It's wonderful. This webinar series is proudly produced by my organization, Obesity PPM, in collaboration with the Healthcare Conference Network. There are 3 upcoming in-person conferences where I'd love to see you. I'm going to be at all 3 of them. We've got the Machine Learning and Big Data and AI and Healthcare coming up in Washington, D.C., Blockchain and Healthcare Canada in Toronto in June. And I think, Aman, you'll be there as well, yes?
I'm working on it, yeah.
That's terrific. And then I'm super excited. I'm chairing Blockchain and Healthcare East in Washington, D.C. So for everybody in my hometown of Washington, D.C., please support the event. It would mean a tremendous amount to me to make it just a huge success. And we're going with a 2-day event this time, which is a first in this series. So super excited about that. Lots of room to put together a really impactful agenda. On the webinar series, we've got about, I guess, 11 or 12 different events in different stages of planning. I'm really excited. We're going to have the first peer-reviewed journal in this space, Blockchain and Healthcare Today. The timing is going to be announced very soon. We have Ted Tanner, the co-founder and chief technology officer at PocketDoc and the founder of DocChain coming on soon. We have the return of Science Distributed and my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Sean Mannion, coming back to give a comprehensive update on the work that's been done there. And we have a legal series coming forward. We're doing a foundational wide-ranging set of issues with a panel of attorneys, and then we're doing some deep dive events to follow, including the one on GDPR that I mentioned. And then we have a 3-part series coming together on blockchain and healthcare and AI and machine learning, where David Holding from Intel is kind enough to partner with me on the content and production of those 3 upcoming events. A couple other things that are happening, and I just want to plant the seed here. We're going to be going broader with social media here. You're going to see these come out as podcasts. There's going to be a YouTube channel, a number of things to try to get broader syndication for the recordings and for all the incredible speakers that are volunteering their time to contribute to open education. So thanks to everybody that's been a part of this every step of the way, and it's a great honor for me to have you this evening, AMCHART, and all the speakers we've had in the past and yet to come. So thanks everybody, and have a terrific day, evening, whatever time zone you're on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right.